So the African Banker Awards, which is a landmark annual event for African banking industry, scheduled at the sidelines of the annual meetings of the African Development Bank, organized by African Banker Magazine and IC Events in cooperation with BusinessinAfrica Events. The African Bankers Awards celebrates excellence and best practices in African banking. This year's edition of the high-profile event was held 2 days ago, virtually, as the AfDB annual meetings were hosted out of Accra, Ghana. Joining me now to speak to the African Bankers Award is the man behind the grand event itself, OMAR Ben Yedder, the group publisher and managing director of IC Publications, headquartered in London. Good evening to you, Omar.
Good evening, Watson. How are you?
It's good to see you again, my friend. It's been about 3 years since we parted in Busan, South Korea, at the 2018 African Bankers Award. So it's good to see you this time around out of London. Let's get started. Why host an annual African Bankers Award, and how have these events fared over the years?
Look, we wanted to continue celebrating excellence in African banking, as well as the rapid modernization of the banking sector in Africa. Last year was a landmark year for many reasons, but the banks proved very resilient. Ministers of finance and central banks, they acted decisively, they acted boldly, and actually they fulfilled the task that was put in front of them. So we have to recognize this excellence, and it's not because we do things virtually that we can't recognize good performance and celebrate success.
This is the second year of running the awards virtually due to the virus pandemic. What has changed and what has not?
Well, I mean, nothing's changed in terms of the judging, in terms of the criteria, in terms of our selection process. What has changed is that we can't meet in person, and ultimately life is about transactions and deals are best done when you meet and share ideas. So hopefully next year we'll be able to meet in person. We're able to see bankers and see people within the finance industry to coordinate and to talk about landmark transactions. So, but on the whole, this year we continued to do what the awards were set out to do, which is recognize success stories in Africa.
What do the results of the nominations and the eventual winners reveal about the banking industry in Africa, in particular for a nail-biting year like 2020?
Okay, so really we'll put an emphasis on a number of different areas, but the trends that we saw was a great, you could say, the digital transformation of the banking sector, digitization. So great emphasis on that. But we also wanted banks that contributed to the real economy, i.e. supporting clients. And really that's what we saw across banking in general, is that banks, they knew that if they didn't support their clients, they would be left with lots of non-performing loans. So they had to support the real economy, and I think that's what they did. And also, for the past few years, we put an emphasis on banks supporting women-led businesses and women empowerment in general. So we really wanted to recognize that, and banks are rising up to the task in terms of increasing their loan portfolio to women and women-led businesses, and also promoting women within their own institutions.
Okay, but what are you learning, Omar, from bankers and banking institutions on the continent as they face challenging times of the virus and impacts on their various economies where they operate the markets and businesses?
Well, okay, we saw a couple of things. We saw that in terms of the central banks, they gave the regulatory headspace for banks to be able to do what they had to do. So less capital controls, so that banks could take more risk. And as I said, the regulatory headspace to be more flexible in terms of what they could do. Ministers of finance pumped money into the economy. Obviously not enough, and they're fighting hard to raise more capital through international institutions such as the IMF and the SDRs. In terms of the banks themselves, I think we saw resilience, and that resilience is important because, when we launched the awards, it was a little after the banking consolidation in Nigeria, and the idea with banking consolidation was to create bigger banks that could finance the development and the growth of the continent. And I think now what we've seen more resilient banks, and that's because they were stronger, they had more capital, and therefore they could be resilient during an economic crisis like we saw last year.
So in terms of the winners for 2021, give me some of the top winners you would like to speak to. Is it the African Banker of the Year? Is it the African Bank of the Year? Is it the most innovative? Is it the SME? Is it what? Tell me about one or two of these awards that really came out for this year, 2 days ago.
Well, African Banker of the Year for the second year running was Herbert Wigwe from Access Bank. I mean, I think he's a formidable banker, very well respected in the industry and by his peers. And he's managed a relentless pursuit of growth, as we saw last week or a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, when Grow Bank in South Africa officially became Access Bank. So through the purchase of Grow Bank, so Herbert Wigwe for sure is one that stood out. Standard Bank at the group level, I mean at the African level, they actually performed very strongly. At a group level, the metrics were a little bit down, but it's a bank that, despite the tough economic conditions, they still managed to support their clients, and they performed very strongly also in the investment banking division, or in their CIB division. In terms of the one that catches my eye always is the deals of the year, and there were some fascinating deals, including a $2.8 billion transaction to finance a rail project in East Africa that's going to connect a number of countries, the Tanzania Standard Gauge Railway project. And also the privatization of Afam Power, and I think that was sold to Transcorp, so Tony Elemelu's outfit, and really again that shows that the transformation that we want to see in the power sector are slowly but surely taking place.
What about the Afrexim Bank COVID-19 facility?
Yeah, so that's the Japanese bank went and raised $400 million from exclusively Japanese investors, 19 Japanese investors, guaranteed by a credit export agency, and they've obviously put that money to good use, and they deployed it to support banks and to support banks respond to COVID. So Mitsubishi Bank, I think, oversaw that particular transaction, and they brought to the table new investors from Japan, taking risk in African paper. So that's fantastic. And also the actual Afrexim Bank also did a $400 million facility to Export Trading Company, an agricultural trading company, and really that facility is a long-term facility that would again guarantee food security and support the agricultural sector and farmers on the continent.
I'm sure you have your eyes on the 2022 edition of the African Bankers Awards.
And I hope we'll see you in person there.
We hope to see each other in person. Thank you so much, OMAR Ben Yedder, the publisher, group publisher, and the managing director at IC Publications. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.